farmers in Idaho have been cut off from their water sources to water their farms. I thought I would weigh in on this, just kind of give you a little bit of credibility. Um, Almost 10 years ago, I proposed a bill in Nevada, and it was a water rights bill, AB 408. It was the most popular supported bill in the history of the state legislature. It was rejected because it was attacked by bureaucrats. Um, and then also, my family's plight in Nevada actually is all about water rights, because our water rights are tied, our grazing rights are tied to our waters. And then, and we had to, litigate and battle through the federal courts using our water rights as proof of rights, proof of grazing. So, and then in Idaho, I took a water tour when I was a candidate for governor, and went all over eastern Idaho to the different irrigation systems, and spent 4 days with the people putting that on, including the Idaho Department of Water Resources. So, not that I am a expert in the matter, but I am quite informed when it comes to water rights, and I thought I'd weigh in and also offer a solution to what is happening to these farmers in Idaho, because it is devastating. And ultimately, it comes down to decision basically based upon incompetency from the Idaho Department of Water Resources. But I'll explain that. Now, ultimately, what I understand is happening is the farmers, there's two types of water rights. One is subsurface and one is surface water rights. And as you may or may not know, water rights in Idaho are the most established rights and most documented rights of all the other rights. And when I say that, I'm not talking about it's the most important right. Obviously, life is. But water rights are more documented in Idaho than any other right. Meaning, the way that the Idaho and the whole West was established was they'd come into an area and immediately begin to claim these water rights. And as soon as the state made it possible, they were able to document them. And those water rights are based upon first in time and beneficial use. And meaning, if you were there first and you claim them first, then you have a priority. And all those that are downstream are secondary to your priority rights. And what we have here is, in the eastern Idaho area, is you have farmers who have priority subsurface water rights, meaning their water is priority, meaning they were established first. And many of those rights are in the ground, in the aquifers of Idaho. And then you have the secondary rights, or lesser priority rights, that are surface rights and in these areas. And there's a conflict there, because the aquifers in Idaho are not being recharged, and the surface rights are, quite plentiful. And so these farmers with priority rights down in the aquifers are extremely concerned that the aquifers are draining and they're not getting recharged, and yet the surface rights are being supplied and seem to be taking priority. So if I understand right, there was some litigation and the state ended up having to determine that the priority went to this, in this area anyway, went to the farmers who had the subsurface water rights. Now, there's some details, that I'm not going to get into, so there's a lot more details, but that's basically the gist of it. And so what's going on is, ultimately, is, one farmer is wanting to protect their water rights, and then the others are needing water. And so the state got involved and, has been involved for quite a while, and ultimately decided that they were going to have to curtail the water rights for over 6,000 farmers in eastern Idaho. That seems like a massive number, but that's a number that I've heard multiple times. It's over like 500,000 acres, which is a huge, huge part. And, Idaho is an extremely agricultural base, economic based state. And so this will be devastating to eastern Idaho and all of Idaho. Now, there is a level of incompetency that went on that caused this problem. And I want to point that out. And then I'd also like to point out what I believe the solution is. And it's certainly not, farmer against farmer fighting with each other. That's not the solution. And it's not ignoring priority rights, water rights, so that some farmers can get it even though they don't get water, even though they don't have the water rights. That would be devastating, because that would upheave all the priority rights and water laws and all of that. And it'd just be based upon politics and whoever likes who. And so I don't want to see that happen either. Wouldn't want to see that happen. Now, some of you might be saying, well, Ammon, why do you care, Well, I have a deep love for Idaho. And even though I was pretty much chased out of there, well, not pretty much, I was, and I can't go back, I see these challenges, and I also am very concerned that, that this is just going to become a battle between farmers, and the real culprit in this issue won't even be mentioned, and the real fight won't be had, and the energy will be spent basically fighting amongst each other instead of fixing the problem. And I hate to see that happen. And so we have the aquifers in eastern Idaho drying up because they're being drained, and we have a decent amount of subsurface water rights, or water, I should say, that are there. And I can only imagine that those that have the subsurface waters are saying we have priority, and we want to, hopefully they're saying we want to recharge the aquifers. And that brings me to my point, because I learned when I went on this water tour a year and a half ago, or whenever it was, 2 years ago, that the aquifers in Idaho, in particular eastern Idaho, have not been recharged for a long, long time. And the Idaho Department of Water Resources has known this. And in fact, when I was on that water tour, I asked them about this, because I could see this conflict arising clear back then between the subsurface water rights and the surface water right owners. I could see this conflict of brewing 2 years ago. And I asked them about that, and they acknowledged, this is some of the head people of the Department of Water Resources, Idaho Department of Water Resources, acknowledged that they had not properly attended to the recharging of the aquifers, either by actually having the means to do it or by making it a priority. And and there was some crazy environmental stuff that they were doing studies on, of the effects of recharging these aquifers and so forth. But ultimately it came down to this. They knew the aquifers need to be recharged, and they hadn't done it. And they knew that they were being drained and not recharged, and that the surface water surface water users, I should say, were basically using those waters that would normally recharge the aquifers. And they hadn't done anything about it. But then I asked, and And remember, I went to multiple, so I spent several days with these people, and they seem sincere and good people, but this was a this was a mistake and an incompetence, level of incompetence that was happening here. I also asked, and this is extremely important, at least I believe it is, I asked how much water, or was there excessive water going down the Snake River into Washington and Oregon that Idaho could use and Idaho has rights to use. And they said yes, that there's millions of gallons flowing out of Idaho and into Washington and Oregon and ultimately into the ocean, that belongs, that water belongs to the people of Idaho. And they were allowing it to flow out of Idaho when they could be using that water to recharge these aquifers. And so this issue that's going on right now is a government incompetence issue. And the one thing I hate to see is the farmers fighting with farmers over this. I mean, I can see it's extremely emotionally charged, extremely almost a dangerous situation, because these farmers will go out of business if they cannot water their crops. And so there needs to be something immediately happening. But I want to make sure that everybody listening to this understands that this is not a farmer's fault issue, or this is not Idaho drying up, or that this is not, something that someone maliciously caused against their neighbor. This is, I believe, some would say it's intentional to pitch, the agriculture community against each other. I don't know that I'm willing to go that far. I believe that this is another government incompetency issue. Another government incompetency issue. And that's what it is. Now, what is the solution? Well, I believe the solution needs to be this. One is, I pray and publicly ask Governor Little to personally get involved in this. And because I think he has the power to be able to resolve this issue, not resolve it permanently, but to take the immediate action so that both types of farmers, the subsurface water users and the surface water users, can make it through this season, and put together like a 2-year plan so that they can make it through the next 2 years, and then immediately put a ton of energy and effort with the local communities to start recharging, to get the equipment and the means to start recharging these aquifers, and to not allow this water to leave Idaho unless we have our aquifers full, and the water rights, both subsurface and surface water rights, are being serviced. And that can be done through the power of the state to protect the rights of all of these farmers. And I believe that if this was to be done, and it was done correctly, that the farmers would be okay. And it has to happen immediately. And it shouldn't be, infringing upon rights. I think it needs to be communicated well, get the community together, get the farmers together, make a plan. That's basically what they've been doing. All the farmers have been able to farm in using the water. It's more of a concern of what the long-term future, if those aquifers are completely down, that's the supply for another large amount of farmers. Probably, I think, even more than the 6,000 that are using the aquifers. So, this is a problem for them if they don't protect those rights, and those aquifers don't recharge. Now they're in extreme problems. And so This is an issue that for a couple years is very sensitive. They need to, get the water recharged, and they're probably going to have to, in many cases, force recharging, which I know they're doing in Twin Falls already, in the Twin Falls area, so they know how to do it, and they've had enough testing and enough, environmental red tape that they should be able to just get it done. And so I believe that is the solution. There needs to be an immediate plan that will go on for about two years, and then a long-term plan, 5, and then another probably, or maybe a 5 or 10-year plan, and then a 100-year plan. And don't allow the water to leave Idaho. I just wanted to say one thing. What our Heavenly Father, our great Heavenly Father, has created a way for the moisture to be picked up from the ocean and in clouds and brought all the way to the Idaho mountains and then dropped there. And then it comes down all these, creeks and rivers, so that his children, mankind, can use this water. And he didn't want us to fight over it. And certainly in Idaho, there's enough water that we can farm and live and enjoy and do all the things we need to do. But let's not let it just go back in the ocean and then we're fighting over it. Heavenly Father did not intend for that to happen. For us to fight with our neighbor over water. When there's plenty water, we just need to manage it a little different and do a little better, and service each other a little better. And so I say that, with sincerity, and just trying to offer this up to those who will listen, and maybe it'll solve or prevent a battle amongst you, and that we can get through this year and get through the next year, and then have a good plan in place and action in place to move on to the next 10 years, and then ultimately pass this great blessing of water and agriculture and this land onto our children. So thank you for listening.